Thanks. There we go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon. I'm so glad to welcome you today to another meeting of the NEC with the Public Affairs section of the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad over a cup of tea. I hope some of you brought your mugs today. I know all of you have worked diligently on your chapter plans because I spent all morning reading them, and that you're aiming to be strategic and creative in a time of virtual engagement, and we are incredibly grateful for your creativity and your hard work. Your leadership continues to inspire and impress me, especially during this really unusual time. And as a network of alumni, you have a really well-deserved reputation as an engaging and dynamic alumni network, and I want to just remind you of that. The work that you do is not only well known in our section and across Mission Pakistan, but also in Washington, D.C., and often cited as an example for the best practices that we have in managing the network, thanks in part to your leadership. I'm really pleased to see such a group of dynamic leaders across the 14 chapters, and to be among the first to congratulate you on all of the work that you're doing. And I know you have a lot of follow-up questions and you're trying to be creative, and again, we're really grateful for that. Across the world, you're regarded as the premier model for U.S. exchange program alumni. And in your current positions, you help both maintain the energy of the network and the influence of the network as well. And you have an important position in helping it grow and change to fit new alumni members and changing circumstances. So at the end of this session, we'll have a question and answer portion that I will moderate. I prefer if you let me know in the chat that you want to ask a question, and when you let me know, please let me know if you want to ask the question or if you want me to ask the question for you. If you raise your hand with your video on, I might not be able to see it in time, so I might miss you. So in order to avoid all of that, can you please put it in the chat? If you open the participants list function in Zoom, you'll see the button that says raise hand, and you can raise your hand and I will be on the lookout for that as well. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ray Castillo. He is the Minister Counselor for Public Affairs for Mission Pakistan. Prior to serving here, he was the press attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Ukraine, and he served as acting Deputy Chief of Mission at U.S. Embassy Prague. And prior to joining the State Department, he spent 11 years at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, where he was an executive producer of NASA TV. And just last week, he was awarded with recognized for 30 years of service with the U.S. government, which means he started working when he was in kindergarten. So we have to give him a round of applause for starting so young. But last week, he also had the opportunity to visit Lahore and meet some of you in person, which is a big deal. I believe this may have been the first time he got to meet alumni in his current position. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Ray Castillo, and please take it away, sir.
Why, thank you, Lynette. And it's my great pleasure to be here for coffee with the leadership of PUAN. Good afternoon, Mr. Syed Karam Gilani and other PUAN leaders. And thank you for having me here today. You are an incredibly impressive group. You represent 14 chapters of the world's largest government exchange alumni network at a particularly challenging time. So let me personally congratulate you on your election and on your leadership, resilience, and vision over the past 5 months. As the National Executive Committee, you have taken on immense responsibility to engage your chapter members and interact with each other while keeping yourselves, your families, and your communities safe from the coronavirus. Now, I will be the first to admit that I miss meeting with you in person. And I look forward to the day when we can all gather together in the same room. Today is not that day, clearly. As Lynette mentioned, I was very fortunate to have been able to meet a few of the PUAN leadership from Central Lahore, and also the chapter president. Was one of the highlights of my year, frankly, was my visit to Lahore. But that's the first time I've gone anywhere in 10 months. Now, so in the meantime, though, we can take this moment of opportunity to demonstrate our creativity and find new and innovative ways to advance PUAN goals. Now, your chapter members are also going through a hard time. By remaining active, providing support through the PUAN community, we can overcome the effects of the pandemic. Indeed, as the COVID-19 outbreak demonstrated to us, we can see the benefits of working together as longstanding partners. Last year, the United States stood with Pakistan in its fight against the virus, and we will continue to do so, as has happened recently with some recent deliveries of COVAX vaccines and medical equipment. Our joint response has trained healthcare workers, local epidemiologists, provided mobile labs and food supplement, and helped those most in need. Now, our health partnership is just one aspect of the U.S.-Pakistan relationship. For example, our economic collaboration is impressive. America buys more Pakistani goods than any other country, and our growing bilateral trade ensures prosperity for both our peoples. Security is, of course, key to economic growth, and for decades, the United States and Pakistan partnered to bring peace and stability to South Asia. And for 70 years, we've enjoyed one of the most successful collaborations in the world in education, as many of you know. So you are a big part of the successful U.S.-Pakistan collaboration. Thanks to the people-to-people ties you formed by participating in U.S. exchanges and English language programs, you have become envoys and bridge builders. You connect and deepen the relationship between the United States and Pakistan. With 32,000 network members and growing, the things you can accomplish are limitless. And it is with your leadership and guidance that PUAN members can strengthen their communities and fulfill PUAN's mission in creating a safer, better educated, and more prosperous Pakistan. I look forward to our continued conversation on how we can do this. Now, before I end and we go to Q&A, let me just say a few remarks that I always think about when I think about alumni, but especially this group. I have had the opportunity to meet some of you sometime back, or some members, I should say, of PUAN sometime back virtually. And I have the opportunity pretty much every week to read about your activities, which are among the highlights that I send back to Washington to show how we are working together to build the relationship, how we are progressively using taxpayer dollars to further that relationship. And you know, I often say, you know, I wish the government would just turn itself over to PUAN. If it would do that, we would see tremendous gains and tremendous efficiencies, because that's what you guys do. You're creators, you're problem solvers, and we will have to continue to do this in the environment in which we find ourselves in. Most public affairs officers, most people in my job would give their left foot to be able to work with you all. And so I count myself lucky, because again and again, you show me how we can continue to build this great relationship with Pakistan. And I am absolutely impressed. You know, I look forward to when we can meet in person. So I think with those few final remarks, I'll turn it back to Lynette, and let's go into question and answer. I'm gonna have a sip of my coffee.
Yeah, great. So I have a first question for you. Just in your experience as a public affairs officer and working at various embassies across, you know, the Department of State, why do alumni have a really important role in the work that public affairs section do overall?
That's a great question, and it's one that that comes up regularly, and it has to do with your unique place in the relationship and in your society, because you are people who have worked with, studied with, traveled with, in some cases met Americans. You've been the beneficiary of American programs, whether they be by going to America or the English teaching programs, which reflect the American model of education. And so, but yet you are still Pakistani, of course. So you are able to bridge these worlds. You are, I don't want to say you're necessarily more authentic, but I think people will take your opinion and your arguments more seriously than sometimes they might take mine, because you know, you're from this society, you know this audience, and you understand the frustrations they may have. I mean, let's be honest, we our governments don't always see eye to eye. Like any long-term relationship or friendship, sometimes we have disagreements, but you're able to put them into perspective for the average Pakistani in a way that I probably never will be able to. And you're also able to be taken more seriously in a way they may not take me. I can present US policy seriously, but what if I try to, you can explain it better. And your experience comes from from the lens of someone who's lived it, as opposed to someone who's just watched it on TV. So you can explain. I might see the errors in opinion that people have, but you're able to understand it and correct it in an easier way. And that's always been the case. And for those of you who are communicators and media or in advertising or whatever, I mean, in many ways you play that validator role, that outside validator who says, no, this is real. And it's incredibly important. And then the other thing is, we care about each other. You've done fabulous things. You've studied in America, you've traveled. I've always wanted to go on an IVLP program, and I never will, unless I'm somehow running the program and I can tag myself along on a trip. You've done fabulous things, and oftentimes you've studied in places in America I've actually never even been to. So for all these reasons, it's critical. And what makes PUAN great and better than any other alumni group I've worked with is you guys are so active and eager. In some countries where they don't have as gifted a group of alumni or as large a group, or a group that's used to volunteering, frankly, it's often falls to the embassy to sort of get them and try to get us moving together. But with you guys, I find you're ready with ideas and ready to get me moving, and that's what I like to see. Back to you, Lynette.
Great. Thinking about alumni as the link between our two countries and the fact that they can bring their experience back to the US and speak about it with, authority. So we have a question from an alumni. Just based on your time here, what do you think has been the most challenging area for Pakistan and US in terms of collaboration and working together?
Most challenging area? That is a good question, because I mean, almost immediately I want to, as everybody has over the last, for 18 months, I want to turn and say that COVID, that just, continuing to build the relationship in the time of COVID has been challenging. And on the one hand, it has been. It's very difficult for me to come into a society, I think, where people are used to making contact in person. We'd rather have our coffee in a living room or in a garden than virtually. And I understand that. I think most people do. So that is a challenge. But on the other hand, virtual programming has also expanded programming. Speakers, we're able to meet in one group rather easily, even though, without the hassle of traveling. And, there are other things that are always difficult. We don't always see eye to eye on matters of countering terrorism. We don't always see eye to eye on military issues, but we've been strong partners ever since independence of this country. And I keep going back to and it's not just it's true. 32,000 members of our alumni group. That shows how much participation. The largest Fulbright program in the world, which is the flagship education scholarship program in the world. Other nations can't boast these things. Other relationships between nations can't boast these things. And so in some ways it seems like a small number given the relative sizes of our countries. But when you compare it to other embassies I've worked at, this is a huge relationship. So that's how I would answer that.
Great, thanks. It seems that we have a fan of your music proclivities in the group, because someone asked, can you ask Ray about how his fondness of music has helped him as a cultural diplomat in promoting goodwill? And a sub request, we would love if he would play something for us, and if not this meeting, definitely the next. So we have to put that on your calendar. That was Elsa, who's the president of Jamshoro. She just waved. So I think that's a
Hi,
great
Elsa.
question because we all come with different kind of skills and techniques, but for sure in your time here, the public has seen through our social media page that you do love music, that you sing. I'm not sure if you play an instrument, but can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
I can. I have been an amateur musician and actor to a degree my whole life. It is a passion of mine that I've tried to use when I can. In terms of cultural exchange, I think it's for me it's always been rather fundamental, and I've seen it in country after country. If you can find a shared value, and in my case, let's just say music. If you can share the affection for a song or the admiration for a fine piece of music across borders, um, sometimes that gives you a basis of understanding to work out some of the more difficult relationships. I mean, I can think back to an example. The first time I was a public affairs officer, I worked in Namibia, a small country. Well, it's actually a large landmass, but a small population, just north 16 years out of apartheid. So a very difficult time for them. Many of the leaders had trained in the United States, had gone to university in the United States. They had received scholarships from various organizations. And we found out that many of them had hung out in Harlem as they were living and studying in New York City, and were avid fans of jazz, American jazz, as was my ambassador at the time. So we arranged to get a jazz quartet to come over, and we brought them in. And the day we were going to play at the embassy, it was pouring rain, and we had the team scurrying around, covering up the speakers, and all of the ministers, because the ministers showed up for this one, they were all playing pool with the musicians and drinking beer with the ambassador and myself and others. And then when the rain let up, we all agreed, let's be careful, let's plug in the music, and let's have a concert. And it cemented, like, I got to meet the Minister of Trade that night. And then anytime I would see him, we would chat, and he later became the Prime Minister. I got to know the mayor because I did an open mic night in a bar in his neighborhood. And typically, American diplomats didn't go to that part of the city very often because it just wasn't, they didn't know about it, and my staff did. So I think it's fundamental, and I will say I've worked into how to work it in another country, in the Czech Republic. I used to play songs of resistance that they used to sing during the communist period, and they were uniquely entwined actually with American bluegrass music because they found it to be they liked the myth of the cowboy and American folk music, and so do I. And so when I came here, I started looking at YouTube, which can be a wonderful thing for this. And I learned Dil Dil Pakistan, and I learned Afreen Afreen, and that led me to Coke Studios, where I started learning some of Nori's music, which is a true favorite of mine. And the team in Lahore was able to connect me with Ali Noor, and we jammed while I was in Lahore, which is a wonderful personal experience. So thank you for that question. I'm going way past my time on this one, but next time I'll bring the guitar, and it'll be, thank you very much. Okay, back to you, Elena.
Yeah, and I would even say if any of the members have suggestions for songs that Ray should consider learning, put them in the chat. He's still here for over a year, and I think he would be up to the challenge of trying to learn them, or at least how to play them on the guitar.
Simple songs. Help me out.
Simple songs. So we have a question from someone who said that how can we utilize this big network, the PUAN network, in a positive way to contribute to, really important issues of the day, for example, climate change, which is currently not only a US priority, but important to members of PUAN as well. What are possible actions that the network or members in the network can take to harness the power of the network to address these important issues?
That's an excellent idea. And I think there's a lot of different things you can do. and it ranges, you know, to a certain degree, it ranges to your interests. I also am keen to get some more projects going. So one of the things was I recently learned about two projects which were part of the small grants program in Lahore. One is a program with entrepreneurship, a university that works with entrepreneurs, and they're working with the local city establishment that and with their the local version of the Environmental Protection Agency to um, put data gathering equipment all around the city, and to use the city network to gather the data to try to map out where the pollution's coming from. And I suggested, you know, perhaps we can, once they get some of that, perhaps we can get, and that's a PUAN member leading it, we can connect them with experts in America. Another member did, in a very small grant, put together a virtual network for Southeast Asian, South Asian students to look at the issues surrounding COVID and the environment and the effect COVID's had on the environment. I was very impressed, and I would like to see that one improved. But you know, it can also be as simple as a cleanup day. PUAN leads a cleanup day in your area. You've got a core group of members. This was something that used to be, it's often a good thing to do around Earth Day, but it used to be a regular thing in Prague. And, you know, it can be a bit of a party. Everybody gets a t-shirt saying they're part of the PUAN cleanup, and you give them bags and gloves, and it's remarkable the amount of trash you can do. I mean, it's a small, you know, dent perhaps, but it also has a huge impact in terms of the message it gives. And, you know, that's the sort of thing that, you know, youth groups in America and all over the world are doing. I can see that you guys can pick up those sorts of things. You know, and then there are the true specialists, you know, who are studying the environment. And those who are active in either NGOs or in the government, you can make decisions and perhaps to change how things work. So I think there's a lot that PUAN can do. And, you know, I shouldn't be the one giving you the ideas, because I know that you have the ideas. Sometimes you just need to sort of think it through and brainstorm a bit. Okay. But great thinking. And this is why you can tell I'm getting energized. This is why I love to talk to alumni. Back to you, Lynette.
With that, I also want to remind alumni that you can also ask your question yourself. Some of you are being really shy, but you can send me a message and I will call on you if you'd like to ask your question, because Ray loves engaging with all of you. Part of that engagement, Ray, is that this group is so creative. So what kind of words of wisdom would you give to the group they're really eager to meet in person and to begin networking? And any thoughts on what we can do with this time now when we are trying to be safe and
Okay.
protect one another?
Yeah, no, and I understand your frustration. And let me take a step back first. Let me take a step back and say, I want to thank you all for remaining so engaged. I mean, you campaigned, and you were clearly active because people know you and they voted for you. And so you have continued to do this during the pandemic, and it's not easy. You know, I have these talks with my own team. Lynette can tell you that. I have talks with our grantee partners and with our local team here, our staff. We all want to go out. Keeping people safe is paramount. You know, I've had these conversations with my daughter. My daughter was leading a local singing group, and I said to her, you know, maybe the best you can do is keep everybody together as much as possible and recruit new people looking toward the future. I think PUAN can do more than that. I think PUAN, one of the things you have to do is, and you're doing it now, what are your plans? What do you want to accomplish? And then once you've got that, you have to sort of say, okay, what can be done in virtual, or how can we do it virtually? Couldn't we do it just on the phone? You know, it's meeting is great, and I do, and when we miss stuff by not, but we have to remember the circumstances within which we are operating. And only a month ago, the hospitals were full. They were so full that people couldn't get in. If you were very sick, you couldn't necessarily get oxygen to help you out. Um, the brave and courageous medical professionals themselves were getting sick. And I mean, that was the worst time for my local team here. Parents were sick, children were sick, staff was sick. Um, Now, I think ultimately vaccines will be the game changer, but it's still only about 1% of the population in Pakistan have been vaccinated. And this is a continuing problem in the United States too. People want to open up, people want to do stuff, but we still have to be cautious. We have to protect our families, our friends, our loved ones, our colleagues. And, you know, from the point of view of being a responsible program manager, we have to protect our audience too, because not all of them are going to say that they don't feel well and they have a fever. They're going to want to show up to that event. And we don't want to spread it widely. So that's, I know that's not the response you want to hear. But as you go through this, okay, as you go through your country plans, your professionals, your creative individuals, if you feel like you've exhausted all possibilities, then send in a request in writing, but you've got to show me, because these come to me. So I can't be looking at 200 of them. It has to be the last ditch effort. You have to sort of figure out, can we do it any other way? And then you have to show me how you're going to be able to socially distance while meeting, or how you're going to be able to satisfy the requirements to keep people safe. Okay. As I say, I know that's probably not satisfactory because we all want the world to be different. Um, but you know, we as a people, as a human race, have come through plagues and big diseases in the past, and we will indeed. But I look to you to do more than just getting through. I look, you know, you're not the normal population of Pakistan. You are the best of the best. You're the people who can figure it out, and that's what I look to you to do. I know you can. Okay,
I
that's why
think
I'm going to stop at that point.
I think that's also an important leadership question from one leader to this group of leaders, is that sometimes making the most appropriate and right decision may not be the most popular decision, but in the interest of safety and protecting the people that would participate in our programs, this is our posture. I want to be fair to some of the questions that are being asked. And you know, we are the public affairs section, right? And we are the Department of State, and we can't speak to other agencies, right? But there's a comment about how there might be USAID projects which have been continuously going, and they were allowed to do things in person. And why are conditions different for the PUAN group versus perhaps another agency?
You know, that's a good question. I don't want to say it's that I am more concerned than others. I don't know. I don't know the answer. What I do know is, for me to go do outside events, like for my trip to Lahore, which we had very limited, very small events, I had to get permission from the chief of mission. I had to get CDA Aguilar's permission, and I had to get agreement from CG Catherine Rodriguez. So it was not like something I can just do. And you know, Lahore is known for welcoming people, and I've already been invited to dinner, I think at 4 or 5 different households that I'm going to have to turn down, at least in the near future. So um, I will take that on board. I know that, as I said, I know that you want to break out and do in-person stuff. So do the USAID contractors. So does, so do our cricket teams. I mean, I understand that. The difficulty is when it happens, I don't want you all to fall ill or your families to fall ill, because I know this has affected you deeply. It's affected me. I've had, you know, my sister got sick, well, my cousin's wife got sick. Somehow my parents didn't. I don't know how, since they weren't very cautious. But it's affected a lot of people, and people have lost family members. And so, you know, you are part of our family, and I take it very seriously.
Thanks,
Back
Ray.
to you.
Thanks for that. One question is, can you tell us maybe about your journey to Pakistan? Like, why did you bid Pakistan, and what was the appeal of coming to work here for you?
Yes, yes, I can. You know, we are in more so than maybe any other diplomatic service. We are really generalists here in the Department of State and in the U.S. Embassy. We try different jobs. We often go to many different countries, or at least that used to be more the norm. And over the course of my career, I've served in Washington a number of times. I've served in Europe a number of times. I've served in Africa. I've served in South Asia, and I've served in East Asia. Um, and so I was looking for a challenge. I was looking to I'm perhaps I have a little ego. I think I'm a pretty good public affairs officer. I had worked in Kabul many years ago, about 10 years ago. And I remembered being impressed with the South Asia Bureau, but Kabul was very difficult. I was not able to get out. And Pakistan has a wonderful reputation in the department for both the missions here, the work that we do, but also our partners. And that is proven true. And so and it is a big mission and a challenging environment. So I decided I would bid on Pakistan because of those very reasons. The one thing that I didn't count on was COVID, like many of us. So, but to be honest, I've been very pleased. We have a top-notch team here. Um, Lynette and Shahid and others working with PUAN, and we have, you know, the Rita Akbar and the USCFP team are just incredible. So all around, it's just been a great experience, and I look forward to another year.
Great, thank you. We have someone who raised their hand. Rohani, the president of Gilgit, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lene. I'm sorry, for some reasons I'm not able to see that chat box option, so I ultimately had to raise my hand. Thank you so much, Ray. It was lovely listening to you, and thank you so much for your encouragement. My question is about the COVID situations and in-person activities that you just mentioned. I completely understand. I completely agree when we talk about when we talk about having the virtual events, or having, not having the physical interaction with alumni and with the community people. But I would like to speak on behalf of the chapter that here in Gilgit Baltistan, if we talk about the logistics, we do not have very good internet service all over the area, in major areas of Gilgit. I mean, in city we have the option, but not all over the other areas of Gilgit and Hunza and some other areas as well, where we have majority of alumni. So would you recommend, if I tell you that, we will, if we want to have any in-person activity, and we will make sure about the social distancing, the masks and all the like we want to make sure that they're following all of the SOPs, because if we want to really give back to the community, I guess I completely understand virtual event would be some hindrance towards giving back to the community, especially in the areas where it won't be logistically possible to have, or organize the virtual events. So I would really love to know your ideas. If we want to follow the SOPs, or would you encourage, or would there be some other options for us?
Okay, I mean, I hear what you're saying. First of all, it's lovely to see you. I would be, and we're very excited about Gilgit. We're hoping to open a new American corner. And we're very excited. I'm very excited about that, because I've never been able to do something like that. And we recently did so at Lums. We're looking at other places, but definitely Gilgit. We want to be there. I think one of the things that would help me understand better and would allow me to make a more informed decision is, this is a bit sort of general. So what are you talking about doing? Are you talking about trying to gather 200 people together? In which case, how do you satisfy the ability to socially distance? What is it? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the goal such that I understand the issue of connectivity, but we have access students who are connecting all over the country now through portable and virtual devices, and I know that you guys are creative there. You don't there's no one down here in Islamabad that has more creativity than you guys. I know that. Sorry, no offense to anybody in Islamabad, of course. Uh, so, but so that's part of it. There has to be a specific reason, and there has to be more specifics so that I could, we could say, okay, this makes sense or not. For example, there's been been put forward. I think the chapter president would very much like the NEC to meet in person. Well, that's 54 people traveling from all over the place. That's hard for me to consider. You're traveling, you're in hotels, you're in, big rooms together. So it's, and frankly, this is working pretty well. So while it's not as satisfying as being able to shake your hand or go like this from 6 feet away or something like that, we can conduct business for the NEC like this. So that's what I would say. You need to be a bit more specific, and because if you send it to Shahid and Lynette, they're going to bring it to me, and that's what I'm going to start. I'm going to say, well, how many people? What are they doing? Why can't they satisfy it another way? How are they going to, okay, if there's 150 people, how are they going to socially distance? Are they going to be in an outdoor stadium? Okay, maybe, but then how are they going to communicate? So these are the sorts of things that I need you to think through before making that proposal. Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much for your feedback. I completely understand. So one thing, I'll make it short, I promise. So one thing that I had in my mind was, rather than including a larger audience, we can have more sessions with some like small group of people, like 20 or 30, where the social distancing would be possible. But I guess that is only specific to our chapter. So if we have, I'll go back to my team and discuss this. And if we want to really have those, the activities that we have already submitted, I guess if we want to have those in person, and we can definitely consider all of these things. So we'll definitely get back to Shahid Wasim or Lene or the PUAN team. So that would be great, I guess, so that we can get guidance specifically related to those chapter or those chapter activities.
Right. So I mean and as I say, but what I want to push back onto you is, I know that I know what you want to do. Okay, I know you want to meet with each other, but I want you to, and you as a leader need to push to your team to say, and you can go ahead and say, Ray made me. Ray said we have to have thought through all the possibilities and what creative ideas could we come up with to keep it virtual. Okay, that's what I need to do. Thanks for that great question.
Great. And as we think about everyone's in this group, their tenure is 2 years. So the situation won't always remain this way, just as Ray and I are hopeful that we will also get to meet you in person or get to do programming in person, because if there's any job at the U.S. Embassy that really relies on that, it is the public affairs section. So you can imagine for both of us, it's just as challenging as it is for you. But we are very, very impressed with your creativity and your gusto for wanting to continue programs in person. And so also thank you, Rohani, for asking your question and being brave and unmuting yourself. It's the purpose of this engagement. If anybody else wants to unmute themselves, please let me know in the chat. We have a few more minutes for questions. This might be a complicated question, Ray, or an easy question, but could you maybe share with the group what has been maybe your top 2 or 3 best PD moments in your career?
Oh my goodness, top 2 or 3 best PD moments. Okay. So one was they all tended to involve, I would say they all tended to involve, projects that we carried out, that took a long time. One that was really great was during the election where, so I'm going to lose the years. It must have been 2008, I think. So Barack Obama was competing first to get the Democratic primary nomination, and then he competed in the general election, and then he became president. And so, as I said, I was in Namibia, a former apartheid country, and this was something that people were keenly interested in. I mean, they were all over the world, but they were keenly interested in this idea of an immigrant, a son of immigrant. He was born, his father was African and his mom was Caucasian, and he identifies as Black American. And it raised all sorts of issues about race and democracy in this country, in Namibia. And we were able to just talk about it and bring in experts. Often, actually, back then, we didn't have Zoom. We used to do digital video conferences. And it was really fabulous. And I brought in like one of his campaign staff who had been a fundraiser, who was an young African American lawyer, who was able to talk about his experience both on the campaign trail, but also dealing with racial discrimination. And this was a really high-powered guy. So it was a really powerful set of programs, and it was wonderful. Similarly, at the end of the Obama administration, I was working in Washington, and we created the first Young African Leaders Initiative, where we brought young African leaders to the White House, and he addressed them. And I got to do that as well. Another one I would say was one of the top events. Before I was even at the Department of State. But it was definitely public diplomacy. I was working as the executive producer of NASA TV. And at that time, we were running the Shuttle Mir program, and we had astronauts on the Mir space station. And we would do interviews with them, with national TV. And the White House, President Clinton was doing a series of lectures in his last year. And we ended up doing a lecture from space with the president and the first lady, and I got to attend, and everything, thank goodness, went fine with video and audio connections. But it was a real triumph because it took of scheduling and of programming. And I will say, on a personal note, and maybe because it just happened last week, but as I said, jamming with Ali Noor was really, really cool because I'm a public affairs officer, but I can also be a fan. And he was a very gracious guy, and enjoyed, the fact that I knew his songs. So that was kind of fun too. Interesting question. Thank you.
Great. I can definitely say that I did not know that NASA had its own TV station or TV programming until I met you. So that's a fun fact that I learned. So as we wrap up, I'd like to invite the PUAN country president to give some remarks before we close up.
Honorable guests, Ray Castro, dear NSC members, and worthy PUAN management. Thank you very much for holding today's virtual meetup. We have all gone through very extraordinary times during the last 1.5 years of our life. We have faced hardship, undergone a lot of pain, and seen departure of close ones, but the point of adaptability and acceptance has kept us all going. The same was applied to the platform of PUAN or our programming. We did not stop and we did not let go. And now, when things are getting normal, I hope, wish, and pray that we double our efforts in making this network a source of bringing about positive local and global changes. On this event, I must pay my thanks to Ray for being such a great sport and a very good host. I would also like to thank the PUAN management for bringing us all together on this online platform. And last but not the least, my sport system, my second family, my NEC, for putting in their best efforts for the progress of this wonderful platform. Once again, I thank all for their participation, prayers, and best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Said. Thank you for those words, and thank you for your enthusiastic leadership during this time. Ray, before I close up, do you have any final words, parting thoughts?
Yes, I do. Country President Syed Karam, thank you so much for those words. I very much appreciate it. I also appreciate your gracious and forward-looking leadership. I think this is going to be a great NEC, and we are going to do great things together. I'm always overwhelmed with the talent I find and just how good I feel after I talk to our colleagues and friends at PUAN. And so it can be frustrating. There's no doubt virtual Zoom things can be frustrating. Keep your chins up. And I look forward, as I said, I will look forward on Friday to reading about what did PUAN do this week, and wow, how did they pull that off again? So thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to come back again.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you for spending this tea time with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your honest words, and thank you for everyone who asked questions. If we didn't get to your question, I apologize. We were time constrained. I want to remind all of everyone here today to encourage your chapters and to encourage alumni to consider applying for the Alumni Small Grants. The cycle will be opening soon. Tomorrow and next week, we'll be having Facebook Lives to talk about the cycle and how to submit a compelling proposal. So please let folks know that we're encouraging everyone to apply, and if they have any questions, to email the PUAN team, and we're happy to help them. I think we're gonna take a quick picture. I think Shanila is going to ask everyone if they would like to, if they feel comfortable, to turn on their video so we can take a quick screen grab. And again, thank you so much. Thank you for your creativity, and it's such a joy to get to work with all of you. Shanila, over to you.
Thank you. Let's wait for a couple of seconds so that others can also turn on their cameras, because I can still see 18 non-video participants. So let's wait for them. Okay, 14. Okay.
I guess, Anila, we need time to set our hair as well.
Yeah, because that's something which I guess I won't be able to fix in my editing part. Okay. And Muhammad took your advice so seriously that he actually started touching his hairs. Okay, so on the count of three, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Now let me take another one, and if you guys have got your coffee mugs or like tea mugs with you, and if you can just try raising them, I'd also try. Okay, my screen is breaking. Okay, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Thank you. And the award for having biggest mug goes to actually Ray, because you had got the biggest one.
This is, everybody knows me. This is so I don't spill the coffee that I drink all day long when I'm walking
Okay.
around.
Okay.
Really important.
Perfect. I'm done. I'm done, Miss Leonard. Over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. And be on the lookout for some of our virtual program this week and next week on the Facebook pages and from emails from Shanila from the MailChimp. Thank you again for your time. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Ray. Thank you to our country president, Saeed Karam. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you so much,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Stay safe. Take a very good care
Bye-bye,
of
everybody.
yourself. Bye.
Bye.